I have another question for you.
Bless you.
Cut. Hello, today I'm joined by Alan Burton, a good friend of mine. We're going to be discussing veganism, plant medicine, fasting, and the stars, aliens and beyond. Hello, Alan.
Hello.
I first met you when I was at an ayahuasca retreat. Fucking hell. Shall we keep it going? Fuck it. At an ayahuasca. At an ayahuasca retreat in, it wasn't Peru, it was in Accrington. You was having your spiritual experience and everybody else was waving their hands around. You was rolling around the floor for 5 hours and the ayahuasca just affected me. I got toothache. So I'm sat on a makeshift bed cum couch in a pagoda in Accrington. You're rolling around the floor for 5 hours and there's all these people in tie-dyed T-shirts and baggy trousers and I'm thinking, what the fuck am I doing here? I spent £350 to meet God on ayahuasca. I'm just sat on a couch feeling like I need a filling. And that was my first meeting with you kind of thing. We've kept in touch and we brought you down here to talk about plant medicine, various things. And we'll kick off the ball. I've mentioned this on the show, my live stream a few times. Kambo. The frog poison, the most powerful detox around, is that correct?
It's certainly a very powerful detox.
You have now become a Kambo practitioner. You can legally administer Kambo. Do you want to give a quick synopsis of Kambo, what the thing is, what it does?
So, first of all, what you just mentioned is a common misconception that I had as well until I did the course, which is to describe it as a frog poison. It's not a poison. It's actually best described as a secretion rather than a poison. So it comes from this frog that lives in the treetops in the Amazon. And the tribespeople, they sing to the frog and it comes down when they sing to it. And it has no known predators. And it allows them to just... They tie its legs, which I don't think is too pleasant. But they tie its legs, but... it's not completely unharmed, and like I say, the frogs hang around afterwards and they come down voluntarily, they don't mind, and they scrape a secretion off the back of the frog and off the backs of its legs, and that secretion is the medicine. And then that's allowed to dry in the sun on some sticks, and as you mentioned, it's an incredibly powerful detox on a physical level and on a spiritual level as well, spiritual energetic kind of level. It's not hallucinatory or psychedelic, as one might say, so it's not a visionary medicine, but it's still a shamanic medicine, it's still a spiritual medicine, and it's very, very powerful indeed.
You said it, as well as being physical, it gets rid of what you call panema, bad energy. If you've accumulated bad energy around you, you will get Kambo can actually realign your frequencies. Is that correct?
Yeah, it can do that kind of thing. Yeah, so it's like the best way you can describe panema is, if you've got someone in a cartoon who's depressed and they're walking around with a cloud over their head and they just have all sorts of bad luck, and everywhere they go that cloud follows them over the head.
Yeah, I know
that kind of thing. Yeah, so it can help to remove that kind of thing. And in fact, my teacher Lewis, he's probably been doing it 5 or 6 years now, and the reason he was like the first person probably in this area to be doing it, and the reason he started doing it was he'd seen the difference it made to a friend of his who had been depressed for a long time, had a load of bad luck, and like with one treatment it was like life turned around.
Could you quickly talk us through like the process to people who don't know about, if they was going to have Kambo, what would the procedure be?
Okay, the way it's administered is small burn marks are made on the skin, just in the very surface layer of the skin. So traditionally with men it's done on the left arm, on women it's done on the right leg, but it can be done anywhere depending on the practitioner and the client. And then the medicine is applied to those burn marks just a little dot of medicine, and then it goes from there into the lymphatic drainage system, and then it causes the body's cells to open up and release their toxins, which is all released into the lymphatic drainage, then goes into the guts, and then it can be purged from either end or both ends. But I should have mentioned before the medicine is administered, typically someone's drunk up to 2 litres of water, so your stomach's full of that water, and that helps to have a very easy purge.
I want to film myself having ayahuasca. Do you think we can start this out at some... Sorry, ayahuasca, Kambo. I want to film myself having Kambo. Do you think we could start that out at some point?
Well, the ceremony is a sacred ceremony, so I would have to ask... I'm going to ask Lewis first, because he's the master practitioner. He's more experienced. He knows more about these things. So I wouldn't do that unless he said it was okay. And if he does think it's okay, I'll ask him, and I'll ask John as well. John's another experienced practitioner, and if they say it's okay, then yeah.
We'd do it all. We'd do it very respectfully. You know what I mean? Colin would. I wouldn't be like driving around on a bike. You know what I mean? Spewing up full of Kambo like jackass. You know, and jumping over like a fat, jumping over a fat man on a ramp or something and falling on the floor. But
no, it's got to be done with respect and reverence for the
plant,
to the plant frog.
Yeah,
spirit of the Kambo, spirit of the whole thing, for your own spirit and the spirit of the Kambo itself, and it's got to be done respectfully and safely. Yeah,
I want to have some more Kambo.
Space.
I've had it 3 times before. The first time was the best. I wasn't in the right mental place for the second time and the third. You know, but I want to have it again.
So what do you think was wrong on the second time? What did you say you weren't?
I got cocky. I thought, I was really scared the first time I had Kambo, thinking I might die here and stuff. And then they put that, is it called Sananga in your eyes?
Yeah.
They put that Sananga in my eyes, and my eyes started burning. And all right, and after a while the pain goes, but your eyes start watering and stuff. And they're blowing bufo up you, not bufo, what's it called? That tobacco.
The hape.
They stick a horn up your nose. It all sounds weird. It sounds like growing up in a children's home for anybody else who doesn't understand about it. And they're blowing powdered tobacco up your nose. And but yeah, the second time was a bit cocky, thinking, yeah, I can handle this. Plus the room, I felt the circle were too big, and my ego started kicking in, like, because I was left one of the last ones, thinking I want to fucking go now. And you have to be in there. It's like everything else. It's how you approach it. You have to be in the right mental state for it. But I definitely would recommend Kambo to anybody, and I would have it again. Yeah,
well, I look forward to it. Yeah, but you've got to, like you say, if you get cocky, it will, it'll kick you.
We'll film it.
You've got to go in with respect and reverence.
We'll film it, and I'll just wear a pair of wire fronts, and I'll be on a skateboard when it kicks in or something. Alan, talk to me about your spiritual journey. Was you once a meat eater and a pharmaceutical person?
I was very much a meat eater and a pharmaceutical person. So I was raised thinking that a meal's not a meal without like some animal protein in it.
Yeah.
And certainly as a teenager, I wanted to build up. You wouldn't know to look at me now, but back then I wanted to build up like a lot of young lads do. And I had my Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding encyclopedia, and it had a section on how you eat to build muscle, and it said about eating like 5 meals a day and making sure you get proteins, meaning animal proteins, and mixing your proteins, and you've got to have loads of them, and you've got to mix them to get the full spectrum of amino acids and all that kind of stuff. And so as a teenager I was having loads of egg whites every day, loads of different meats and fishes and all that. And to me, a meal wasn't a meal with... I believed that animal protein, meat, fish, dairy, etc. was essential to human health, and you could not be healthy without it. And I also had health issues from age 21 to 35, which I've talked about in another podcast, that was like skin and insomnia. So the skin would go itchy all night, every night, which would mean I couldn't sleep every night. And that went on for 14 years. And then to try and help me to sleep and to try and calm the itching, I was on ridiculous amounts of medication through all those years. So I was like a walking pharmacy cabinet, essentially. And that was, yeah, for a lot of years, I was very heavily medicated, and eating a fair amount of meat, dairy, fish, eggs, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely, yeah.
What was the point where you decided to ditch meat and investigate spirituality and spiritual practices?
Well, they kind of came. As a kid, I always felt spiritual, right? So, as an example, I would say at Easter time, there'd be stuff on the telly about Jesus or something like that. I don't know, Jesus Christ Superstar or something.
Yeah.
And I thought, he seems all right, you know, he had some good ideas and some good teachings or whatever. But some of the stuff in the Bible and the dogma that comes with religion, I couldn't abide by. I also wanted to sing when I was a kid, or be in a choir or something like that. But I couldn't join a choir because it all came with church and spiritual all that dogma that I couldn't agree with or believe in. And so I'd kind of gone away from that. Also, I was quite a rational person. So as far as I was concerned, science told us that spirituality isn't real and all that stuff isn't real. You know, it was very nuts and bolts, Newtonian physics kind of thing, chemistry, biology, whatever. And I've never been a scientist, but I've always been quite rational in that respect. So I let that override my intuitive feelings. Now, as I described, I was like a walking pharmacy cabinet for a number of years. In 2007, I first went to Natural Practices, where you've been, in Wilmslow.
Colonic.
Yeah, well, that was part of what helped to start to turn my life around. I started to try and detox and I was looking for other ways to get well. And the first time I got relief from the itching was actually having a colonic.
Right.
And the colonic practitioner has come to me for Kambo now, so it's come full circle. I spoke to her the other day. And I remember that as I started to detox, so I had some dietary advice from them. I started to eat organic, started to go into Unicorn Grocery in Chorlton.
Okay.
I started to cut out sugar, and I was having a few herbal things from Natural Practices to help with the detox. I was having my colonics, and I was starting to ditch all that medication, and eventually I was able to stop all the medication completely. And I remember I couldn't explain it, but I felt more spiritual. I would go for a walk in the evening and I'd just feel more connected to everything.
Yeah.
It was really hard to explain. And then, but I was still eating meat and dairy because the nutritional advice I'd had at that time told me that was good and told me it was essential. And I still believed it was. And then as time went on, I was also singing for a living, and I was singing all day, and I was trying to also use music to calm me, because I hadn't been able to relax for all those years because of the itching and the insomnia and the medication. And I was using music to calm me and to calm others. I was singing in department stores and restaurants and just trying to create a kind of blanket of soothing sound that would soothe souls, you know. That was part of what I was doing. And then I was fascinated. So part of what changed my viewpoint on everything was YouTube. So because I was healthy eating, I was spending a lot of time washing and chopping vegetables, cooking them, washing up. And while doing that, I just discovered YouTube. I'd connect it to a speaker, which needed to be charged up anyway, because I'd been singing all day with it. And I'd be listening to interviews on YouTube from Coast to Coast AM, which is this radio station in America, which you can't find them on YouTube anymore because the censors are too, not the YouTube censors, but the Coast to Coast copyright people take them down. And there were all these fascinating interviews with Graham Hancock and people like that. And I was, since I was a kid, I'd always been fascinated. I'd had the Eric von Däniken books. I'd come across Graham Hancock's book in about 1999, probably Fingerprints of the Gods. I'd seen him on Channel 4 at that time. And I liked watching Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. And sometimes Horizon, when I was a kid, would have things about psychic experiments and things like that.
Yeah.
So all that stuff fascinated me. And in the YouTube era, I was able to find all that again and really start going down that rabbit hole. And then Ancient Aliens came on, and I discovered this guy called Brian Forster. I'd seen him on Ancient Aliens, and I'd heard him on Coast to Coast AM, and he had these tours of South America, of these places I'd always wanted to go to, these mysterious places where you cannot figure out how they made these things and the knowledge that they had. So it was always a great mystery. And then it turns out that Brian Forster's running these tours, and I thought, I can't justify paying that much for a holiday. But then he was doing one with Graham Hancock on the tour, and I thought, oh, go on. And I did. I went to South America in 2013, and I'd heard Graham Hancock talking about ayahuasca. So first it comes from the interest in ancient civilizations and these amazing ancient sites, whether it's the pyramids or Pumapunku or wherever. And
can I just stop you there? We've got some really good questions about that, but I need to ask you, I toy with the idea of veganism and vegetarianism. I found it real. How difficult was the transition from stopping eating meat to becoming a vegan? Or was it a vegetarian then vegan, or did you just go straight to vegan?
No, I was never actually vegetarian, but the amount of meat and fish and dairy that I was having was getting less and less and less and less, because A, I was learning more, and B, I was feeling what worked with me more. And again, it was the internet age. So just as the internet age had pushed me to a spiritual journey, and eventually, many years later, led me to the medicine, the food journey, first it was what people had told me, professionals had told me, and then in the internet age, I'm starting to learn more, and slowly, and also feeling the changes in myself, and slowly, that was leading me towards having less and less meat, dairy, fish, etc. And by the time we come to summer 2015, I was hardly ever having any. So the only time I was having meat and fish by then was if I went round to my mum's house. And even then it was only organic. I was eating all organic anyway by that stage. And rarely making those, I was almost never making those things for myself. And then by the summer of 2015, I'd come across, really started to come across the evidence about whole food plant-based eating. So I wouldn't say vegan, because vegan can be junk food vegan. You can live on vodka and chips, and that's vegan, but it's not healthy.
No.
So I was learning primarily about whole food plant-based stuff, and it was totally reversing what I'd known, also about oils and things like that. It was reversing what I'd been told before and what I'd assumed before. And I went to an ayahuasca retreat, so the two things coincided. I went to an ayahuasca retreat in Cologne in 2015, and it was my first ever ayahuasca retreat. And it was after that, I think I had a meal on the banks of the Rhine before catching the train to the airport, and I think I had fish in that meal, if I remember rightly. But there was just something in me that said, no, that's it. Because it was like all the knowledge I'd been learning, plus just some intuitive things, said, no, that's it for now. And so the key site for me at that time was a site called nutritionfacts.org.
Okay.
Which is all peer-reviewed evidence. And I was coming across quite a few others as well. So these are scientists and doctors reviewing the peer-reviewed science. And once I was coming across the science, I realised, first of all, not only do I not need all the animal-based products, but I may well and probably will, and most people would be much, much healthier without them. And I'm still open to the possibility that there might be some benefits from the animal products that you perhaps cannot get from the plant product. I'm still open to evidence coming to light that may show that. But for the most part, the healthiest populations in the world are eating a mostly plant-based diet.
No. Do you ever just think, fuck it, I want a bacon butty with HP sauce on it? Is that just something that's meant...
Doesn't appeal.
Not anymore. When you smell meat cooking, is it like... How does it affect?
It doesn't appeal at all to me, in the same way that I accidentally gave up drinking in 2005.
Yeah.
And that was a complete accident.
You was leading me towards what I wanted to talk about, which we must have psychically Bluetoothed to what we're... fasting. you've done some serious fasting, like 10. What's the longest time you fasted?
A 10-day water fast.
10-day. I've managed 2 days, and then I'm crying for kebabs and things, which completely fucking spoils it, you know. But what's the discipline, and how would you do a 10-day fast, and what are the benefits for your body fasting to anybody who doesn't know?
Okay. Well, the benefits are multiple. So any cleansing can bring multiple benefits. It's sometimes hard to pinpoint them. So in the same way that a Kambo cleanse can give multiple benefits, fasting can give multiple benefits. In terms of what those might be, if someone's had chronic ailments for a long time, or there are issues with their gut that need healing, those can happen. If you've got scar tissue anywhere, the scar tissue can be broken down and fixed and healed and tidied up. If you have cancer in your body, tumours, we all have cancer. Everybody creates cancer every day, and everybody fights cancer every day. The only times it becomes a problem is when the cancer gets out of control and we're not fighting it as quickly as it's being produced. So this guy I interviewed called Dr. Alan Goldhammer, and he has a place in California called the True North Health Clinic. So if you're doing a really long fast, ideally, you should be going somewhere supervised. And he's got this peer-reviewed stuff, so it's proven, it's not anecdotal, where he's had someone with lymphoma go in there and do a 20-day water-only fast. And after 20 days, the lymphoma has halved in size. And then because he's taught that person how to eat healthy, whole food, plant-based on the other side, the lymphoma rather has remained half the size that it was before. And that person, at the time I interviewed him, was going to go back later to do another fast, and that would hopefully shrink it down to 0. And again, afterwards, keep on the healthy eating and hopefully maintain it at 0. Fasting can stimulate stem cells. So like when you're a fetus or a baby, you have stem cells that help to regenerate tissue and help the baby to grow, and we can cause them to be stimulated, and that helps to regenerate faulty tissue in the body. We can increase our human growth hormone through fasting. We can increase things called cytokines, or I can't remember what they're called, but they fight cancer. So even if you're doing intermittent fasting, if you for 3 days reduced your calories, I think, to less than 500 for 3 days running, you've then got these cancer fighting cells generated in your body, and those are flowing through your body for the whole of the next month, just from 3 days of going under 500 calories. So there's benefits to intermittent fasting, there's benefit to longer fasting as well, there's benefits to autoimmune conditions, and that's probably why I was doing it, skin and hair, that's another autoimmune condition.
Okay.
And yeah, you can also, as Dr. Alan Goldhammer told me, so a lot of people in this day and age, they've had Prozac or those kind of drugs, the SSRIs. It's very normal, common now. He said that if you've had those, it leaves a permanent kind of imbalance in the brain, even if you had them years ago and now you've been off them. Whereas the fasting can reset that. It's like it just kind of allows the body to reset. By resting the digestion, it can go into a deep healing mode. And you've done Kambo, you've done ayahuasca, so you've probably felt that healing going on in your body at that state, and you will experience similar states when fasting very often.
The trouble with me is, what's different to you, I would have Kambo or something and feel fantastic, and 7 days later I'd be at kebab shop. I'd just at this point like to give a shout out to our sponsors who provided all the camera equipment, Poundland. Thank you very much. Yeah, as I was saying, Alan, the difference between me and you is I do struggle with the discipline of things. I've done Kambo, felt fantastic. A few days later, I'm in the chip shop or the kebab shop and things. I've only recently, during lockdown, started cooking for myself, buying a slow cooker.
How's that going?
Well, it was going all right, and I was actually feeling better. I did a couple of days fasting and all that. Still eating meat, and then I've slid now back into kebab shop. I'm trying to not do it though. But have you any advice for someone who is thinking about ditching meat, moving towards a more healthy lifestyle? Is it baby steps, or have you any advice for people?
It's very personal. Probably I did it quite differently to a lot of people, so I don't know if my way would work for anyone else. But there are things like there's a lot of cookbooks. So I mentioned the site nutritionfacts.org. So the guy made a book called How Not to Die. He also then made a cookbook called the How Not to Die Cookbook, and I think he's got like a second cookbook. There's pcrm.org, which has a 21-day vegan Kickstarter thing with loads of recipes. I think a good idea is to get some of the cookbooks, or you can start with like just doing a day or a meal here and there. Say, okay, we're going to have a plant-based meal tonight. Or one day we say, okay, we're having one day a month, one day a week, whatever it is, or set a challenge to go 5 days, 7 days, whatever it is. And then start from there. But I think getting some good cookbooks. So there are some very, very good whole food plant-based cookbooks. Now, I never use them because I just get what I get and I throw everything in, and that's what I do. And other people might not enjoy my cooking, but I love it. But I know a lot of other people follow recipes, and you can get loads of recipes online from a load of good sites like the ones I mentioned. And I'd go from there. Can
vegan food be tasty? Can it be as good as a normal meat-based kind of diet? Yeah.
Personally, I think it's as tasty or as bland as you want it to be. In the same way that meat can be as tasty or as bland as you want it to be.
True.
The amount of variety within the plant and fungi kingdom, and the amount of different spices and different tastes and different textures is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. There's almost endless choice. You'll actually almost have more flavours and more varieties than if you stick to the standard thing you've always been having. True. You can, it certainly can. But the other tip I'd give is always have the healthy stuff available. Because if you've got nothing in your cupboard and nothing in your fridge, or only unhealthy stuff in your cupboard and your fridge, and then you get hungry or bored, you're going to go for the unhealthy stuff, whether it's from the cupboard or the fridge or from the local store or the local takeaway. If you've always got some healthy stuff to hand as your snack, then when you're snacking, you just reach for the banana, reach for the apple, reach for the orange, reach for the carrot. You'd go for it like that. Yeah. So always have it to hand, and then you're not craving. You are craving, but then you satisfy your craving with something there.
Do you think vegans get a bad rap, or they bring it on themselves by preaching and telling people who eat meat, this is how you should live your life, banging mallets on tables? What's your thoughts on it? Basically,
it's horses for courses. It really, really is. So, as an example, I came to being a vegan or a whole food plant-based eater by being on a health quest and following the evidence, and that worked for me. For some people, if they see some posts by a militant vegan showing them how appalling the animal agriculture industry is and the cruelty, etc., that will wake them up and make them change. For others, it'll push them the other way. For some people, if they hear the stuff about health, they get sick of being whacked around the head with it, whereas others are desperately seeking information about health and desperately seeking a sustainable cure for health that doesn't rely on pharmaceuticals with loads of side effects. Some people have chronic conditions and it helps them. It's totally horses for courses. So, for example, it might be that you've got a friend who's really fit and healthy and you don't know what his secret is, or could be a footballer who has longevity in his career and you don't know why that is. So then people, and he doesn't shout about it, and then people ask that person and they come to it that way. There's lots of different ways to come to it. Some people, they're, like I say, being militant puts them off. But on the flip side, you've got militant meat eaters who think, no, you cannot have a meal without meat, or you need to be paleo, and that's the only way to be healthy. That's the only way to lose weight. That's the only way to beat this, that, and the other condition. So there are these people on all sides, and it can be quite off-putting, but at the same time, each of them has a place, and each of them appeals to somebody, and each of them has probably reached somebody. So the quiet vegan who just lives as a vegan but never says anything has probably influenced people in his way, and the militant vegan who's always posting on Facebook and saying how terrible it is to eat meat or to do agriculture, they'll have a place, and they will influence people. And the one who's saying about the health consequences of eating all these things and the health benefits of veganism, they will reach people, and they'll all do it in their own way. And so I just think it's part of the rich tapestry of life. Not all vegans are the kind you described. Not all meat eaters are one way. There's every different kind of meat eater, and there's every different kind of vegan.
Good answer. And just for transparency, Alan bought his leather jacket before he became a vegan, but it's too tight to buy a new jacket. Is that... You don't mind us mentioning... We have to mention that, because there's some twat will watch this video saying, hey, can he be a vegan when he's got a leather jacket on? He bought it years ago, you know. And this is made out of grass and twine, if anyone's wondering. They break after one wash. You've covered that very well. I think... We should fire. I have a live community who watch these kind of podcasts, and we've asked them for some questions, and we're going to fire a few questions at you, if that's all right, Alan. Mm-hmm. First question is from Mr. Gasax. Can you recommend anything for liver health or a liver detox?
I'll be honest, I don't know enough specifically about the liver. Although I do know milk thistle is good for the liver. That's what I do know. And I think there's the one with the one I haven't done, castor oil. So it's like a castor oil pack that they put on the liver. So I don't know enough detail, but look into castor oil liver detox and look into milk thistle for the liver. But I don't know enough specifically about the liver, so that's something I always, if I don't know something, I'm not going to pretend I do. Yeah.
Have you ever done the Turpentine cleanse for parasites?
Personally, no. Tell me more. Let
me just tell you, it's not turpentine that you buy from Wallpaper Supplies, so don't go supping that. It's a special gum turpentine taken from pine trees. And you take a teaspoon every morning, followed by castor oil, then you go and do your thing in the toilet. And then an hour later, because when you've killed the parasites, they secrete a toxin, you have activated charcoal. And apparently you do that for a week. A few weeks. I only did a week. Yeah. I went back to the chip shop.
How did you feel after that week?
The turpentine, you feel so sharp mentally. That's what I'm suffering from at the moment. I've got bad brain fog. I do need to come and see you and have Kambo, but I'm a bit scared. I've lost my bottle a bit, but I want to have Kambo and I want to film it. Joe asks, what plants contain DMT and is it possible to extract it yourself?
Lots of plants contain DMT, but like the ayahuasca plant, but there's others like acacia, and I can't think off the top of my head, but there are loads. Can you extract it? I don't know. I'm not doing very well on these, am I? I don't know, but I think it depends what you want to do with it. If you want to extract it and isolate it, that's the kind of thing a chemist would want to do. But you can extract it by ingesting it as the plant, which is what people do with the acacia and with the ayahuasca and with the others. I think there's mimosa and all sorts of different things. Yeah.
It's a bit of a big ask, that, Joe, really. You know, just go and see. You shouldn't be taking ayahuasca on your own and DMT. You'll end up on a train line, you know what I mean, with lipstick on. I'm not as
good as Google, am I?
You're fine. They're asking difficult questions. They're a tough bunch, these lot. I have to deal with them every night. The amount of people you have to throw out that room, it's like a bad pub somewhere. Yeah. As this name will give you an indication. Thundercunt asks...
Yeah, okay.
These are the people I attract. My frequencies are all fucked, Alan. Can O negative blood type be traced to alien intervention with humankind?
I'm open to the possibility that maybe, but I don't know. But I am open to that possibility. I have, what's the other one? The rhesus factor and things like that.
Is rhesus the monkey gene?
I think rhesus is something to do with O negative. I don't know exactly, but I'm open to all possibility. What I've learned over the last few years, well, the last 12 years, 13 years since YouTube and going down the rabbit hole, is the more I learn, the more I realise I don't know and will probably never know. But we've forgotten most of our history, so it's possible. It's
the best thing. I've decided I don't know anything. Lots of people have known that for years, kind of thing, but I want to just come to the realisation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you go mental.
Yeah.
Mashed 85, we've kind of covered it slightly. How easy to make the transition from vegetarian to vegan diet? Have you any tips?
It's super easy. And we've already covered it, so I must not repeat myself.
Yeah.
But no, it can be very easy. I totally recommend, depends where you live as well. If you can find a good whole food store, especially, like obviously in the Manchester area, the best vegan whole foods, ethically traded, organic store is Unicorn Grocery, but you can find them all over the place, and especially if you can find a place like that, it makes life so much easier.
Yeah,
but it's easier now than it was a decade ago.
We're fucked in Wigan. We don't have any vegan, we don't have any Buddhist centres because kids would smash out windows, and we don't have many vegan places. I think there's a place in Wigan. It's like £8 for fucking mushrooms on toast. You know what I mean? So a lot of people. That's why everybody goes.
But I never eat out anyway, so it doesn't bother me.
It's why a lot of people go to Aaron Foods in it and buy like 300 pizzas for £1.
But I think anything with healthy eating, whether it's vegan or non-vegan, you have to be prepared to put a bit of effort in. A bit of effort and a bit of forethought and a bit of planning. And if you do, then it's easy. If you're totally relying on like ready meals, then it's a bit harder.
Not good as well. They're really bad for you, as we've kind of found out. MAGA 2020, which I only realised when you pointed out, is Make America Great Again. I think it's Toby, his name is. What are your vegan views on laboratory-grown meat as no animal died in its production? Ethically, what do you think?
Well, the ethics come in to me as to whether this is a healthy product for humans. So if you are trying to make profit from something that is potentially harmful to humans, then to me that's not ethically good. We don't know yet because we haven't got long-term studies and we don't know the long-term effects of these things. I think it's completely unnecessary. I think you can be completely and utterly thriving and super healthy without such things, so I don't see the need for them. But if it was proven to be healthy and someone was desperate for that taste of meat, and it was proven long-term to be healthy, and you've got the option of chop down the rainforest and kill some cows, or grow some of this fake meat, and it's proven to be healthy for humans, then ethically I'd say that was the better thing. But my gut instinct, without knowing, and it is a guess, is that it probably in the long term won't be that healthy, but who knows.
I have a question here. Shall I start again? Have I fucked up? No, anyway. Adam Foster, Fozzie Burr. If no meat eaters... I think that's my dyslexia. I'll work this question out. If meat eaters don't agree with the consumption... Oh, for fuck's sake. Keep it running. If vegetarian... we have all this shit. Don't worry about it. If vegetarians don't agree with the consumption of meat, then why do they buy Quorn, which is just an imitation of what they're against? Have you any thoughts on that? Once again, it's kind of the same question. It's been spun around.
Most people's dietary habits and most people's general life habits are based not on what would be good for them, or not even what they would actually enjoy the most. They're based on habits of a lifetime. Personally, fake cheese, fake meat, all that stuff has never appealed to me. I don't see the point, and generally it's unhealthy. Sometimes I'm sure you can make some healthy versions, but generally it's not that healthy. it's never appealed to me. But something I've noticed as I've got into nutrition, the hardest part is not to convince people of what's good for you and what's not, or that this is tasty and this isn't tasty. It's that most people's eating habits are entirely based on how they were raised, what they've got used to eating, what the people around them eat, what the society, what the culture eats. And if that's what they've been born and raised with, here's a meal and there's your meat, they're trying to substitute what they already have known. It's totally unnecessary, isn't that tasty, isn't particularly healthy. So it's just like, yeah, they're trying to do the ethically right thing, but stick to what they've always known. Because old habits kind of die hard.
Yeah.
So it's like a stepping stone that some people stick with forever. And it depends why they're doing it. If they're doing veganism to be ethical, then they probably think, well, it's better to have that than to kill an animal. If they're doing it for health, then maybe it's better a little bit, but it's not great. And you'd be better off just using totally, whole foods rather than this processed fake product thing. I'm not a fan anyway, generally.
Is it soy? Is it soy corn? Is it some kind
I have no idea, because I've not looked into it, because I'm not that interested.
I need to ask you a question. I've started drinking soy milk, and Paul Maiden says I'm going to turn extra gear than I already am. Is soy milk bad for you? Just testosterone levels and stuff?
If you have outrageous amounts of soy, it can have some effect. But that's like outrageous amounts that you will not, I can guarantee, you will not even be coming close. It's generally shown that people who are vegan have higher testosterone than those who are omnivores. So if you were concerned about your estrogen levels, then you wouldn't be drinking normal milk. You wouldn't be... That's the worst. Having normal dairy is far worse for your estrogen levels than a bit of soy milk. If you're really worried about soy, there's a whole load of different plant milks, but a little bit of soy milk will do absolutely no harm. So the evidence, it's like, have you ever heard that phrase, the dose is the poison kind of thing, or something like that, which means that a little bit of something can be good for you, but lots of it can be poisonous. So you could kill yourself with water, for example.
Yeah.
In fact, that's the biggest danger when having Kambo, drinking too much water.
Really?
Yeah, so anything can be toxic or bad for you if you have too much of it. But if you have a normal amount, no problem at all. So soy is healthy in moderate amounts. If you go way over the top, you can affect those levels. But if you were having dairy, you'd be affecting those levels terribly anyway. It's one reason why so many men have moobs, as an example.
I drink distilled water, which is better, but it's dead water. Everything's taken out of it. There's no minerals in it. Your water supply, you have a system fitted at home, don't you, to your taps and things?
Yeah, the reason I had that is because, as I mentioned before, I had that skin condition. So I had to have, one of the things that helped to turn my life around was putting a shower filter on. So I'd be washing in the shower with a shower filter that filters out chlorine and other chemicals, which meant that having a shower was less painful for me. It really stung before, and now it stung less at this time. And then to try and turn my health around, I was drinking mineral water, and I'd buy the cheapest stuff from Lidl. And I didn't like the fact that I was using all these plastic bottles, which isn't good for you anyway, and it's not good for the environment. And so I looked into the possibility of getting a filter for my tap, like a water filter where you could just keep it in the kitchen and filter the tap water and everything, would be great.
Yeah.
And the guy told me it'd be actually cheaper to get a whole house filter. And I thought, no, he's just being a salesman. And I actually did the maths, and over the course of so many years, it'd be cheaper to have a whole house filter, because I had to have one on the shower anyway. And it worked out cheaper than buying water or having the filter on the shower. So that's what I did, stuck a whole house filter in. So everything that goes through the radiators and through the washing machine and through the shower and through the taps, it's all gone through the filter. How
much did that cost, if you don't mind me asking? Is it a dear job?
It was about £600.
That's not too bad, that really,
but is it? It lasts, for me, the number of years that it lasts depends on how much you use. So I don't use that much because I'm a single bloke. Yeah. If I had a big family, that might be different, but as it stands, it lasts years and it's still really cheap, works out pennies.
At one point, I was spending £40 a month on bottled water, and glass bottled water, but it is a dear do.
Well, you're better off saving all your glass bottles, never throw away a glass bottle, and then go to have a day out in Buxton once a month.
We used to do that. We'd come back from Car, was like weighed down with like bottles of water kind of thing.
Yeah.
But bought a water distiller. But like I said, the only problem with that is it's good for detoxing, but you're not getting the essential minerals.
Yeah, but
it butchers everything, doesn't it?
So I've heard some people say that, but then I've heard Dr. Gregor from nutritionfacts.org saying that actually mineral water might be worse in his opinion because you're getting a load of minerals and you might be getting too much.
And they collect the two schools of thought is distilled water for people with bad joints. It flushes all the when you drink mineral water, the minerals in it are inorganic in the sense they collect around the joints and make the joints more stiff. Have you heard that kind of thing?
Yeah, and I've heard certainly the detox effect. So again, Dr. Alan Goldhammer from the True North Health Clinic said that when he's doing these medically supervised water fasts with people, he uses distilled water. He says you don't want H2O plus a load of minerals, you just want H2O. And in terms of people are worried about not getting enough minerals, you hear that a lot. As long as you are eating a really good, healthy diet, you will get all the minerals you need from the diet. So there are lots of different schools of thought on this, and one might prove to be more right than the other. They all claim to have the evidence on their side, and that's the difficult thing with the internet. You hear everything, and they all claim to have the science on their side. So who do you trust?
It's kind of following your own initiative at some point, innit, and your own intuition. But that's cleared up. That let's go space age. Let's put our tinfoil suits on and crash helmets and go into galactic. Okay, Roger King. Hello, Roger King. I'm just laughing at you staring at me. I'm sorry, everybody. He's just staring at me like, and the look on his face is what you're doing with your laugh. Unless that tea's kicked in. I'm sorry, I'm feeling quite giddy, everybody. But this is a fun show. It's not fucking question time.
There's a time and a place for fun and enjoyment. It's not on this show.
Well, that's my own fucking comedy career, But views on interactions with alien civilizations or time travellers, which have been depicted in hieroglyphs and stone carvings of helicopters and astronauts and the whatnots.
Right. I like this.
We'll get into it now.
Well, that helicopter thing, I don't know if it is a helicopter, but my God, it looks like one, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we...
Take two. So, Alan, we just mentioned these a question by Roger King about our interactions with ancient civilizations, where you've seen in ancient Egypt hieroglyphs of helicopters, and there was a gold plane found in Peru or somewhere, weren't there? And pictures of spacemen drawn on walls and things. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts are we probably have interacted with. I think there's probably life all over the universe. I think the chances are we have interacted with that life. I think it's limiting to think of it purely as physical, because I think any really intelligent, highly technical society would also they'd be moving interdimensionally, as we know about from ayahuasca and things like that. I think it's a complex mix of physical interaction, interdimensional interaction, psychic interaction. I also think that what Graham Hancock says might be right, which is he thinks there's no need to explain things as aliens. It could be that it was just high advanced human civilization. That's possible. But I think it's very likely that we've interacted with beings from other worlds and other dimensions throughout history. I do think most of our history has been lost. The most fascinating thing to me is the work of Randall Carlson and others who have looked at what happened about 12,000 years ago, which was like the end of the last ice age, when it looks like there was some kind of massive cataclysm. People have explained it in different ways. Randall Carlson thinks it was probably some impact or a number of impacts from space, which wiped out most of life on Earth. wiped out the megafauna, so that's like your woolly mammoths and your saber-toothed tigers, so wiped out most of the megafauna. It put humans back to almost, tiny numbers and almost back to the Stone Age. Somehow we survived, and destroyed most of the evidence for previous civilizations as well. And we, who knows what they knew. But here's another fascinating thing about the ancient civilizations and visitations from space. So have you heard about Cydonia?
No.
So Cydonia is an area of Mars.
Go on.
And it looks like there are pyramids and a face and structures on Mars.
Yeah, I didn't know what to call that.
Yeah, and obviously we'd need to send someone there to examine it, but I've heard that Cairo, so obviously this area is quite similar to Cairo and the Giza Plateau, which is right next to, Giza Plateau is right next to Cairo, so it's similar to that, but Cairo apparently means place of Mars. So
really?
It's just a bit of a coincidence. And then if civilization was destroyed on Mars by some kind of war or cataclysm, because Mars was a god of war or something. Yeah. So there's a lot of truth encoded in mythology, as well as truth encoded by looking at geology, which is something Randall Carlson does a lot. Looks at the geology and the evidence for the cataclysms. And then you've got evidence in archaeology, which is what this guy's talking about. It's just so multi-layered, the evidence.
What do you think the pyramids were? I've heard that there was a telecommunication system that vibrated like batteries. Have you any thoughts on what the pyramids were?
Not tombs, put it that way.
No.
Because there's no evidence that there were tombs. So the conventional archaeologists would say the tombs. There's no evidence that there were, and no bodies were found inside. They're certainly mechanical in some way. The precision implies that they are machines. So there's a guy called Christopher Dunn. I want to give a shout out to a channel called Uncharted X. So there's a guy called Ben who I met in 2013 when I went on this tour with Brian Forster and Graham Hancock to Peru and Bolivia. And I just discovered recently he's made this channel now called Uncharted X, and he's interviewed all these amazing people and made these amazing documentaries. And
does his camera work?
Sony, the technology that Sony use does not have the longevity of the technology that the ancients used. They don't build things to last like they did with the pyramids. But anyway, Christopher Dunn and the pyramids.
We might be intercepted by the CIA, who are sending wave frequencies to disrupt this podcast because they know it's earth-shattering. Anyway, Christopher Dunn and his machines. Yeah,
so he thinks it's some kind of machine. I've not finished listening to that podcast, so I'm not sure exactly what kind of machine. I'm pretty sure it affects frequency and consciousness. There are those who say it was providing free energy in a kind of Tesla way. And there are those who suggest it was there to affect consciousness. There are certainly people who've stayed the night. Like there's a guy called Robert Schock who's done some fascinating work, and he stayed the night in in what's known as the sarcophagus, which is just like this stone box in the king's chamber in the centre of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and apparently it had quite a profound effect on him because you're in the centre of this energetic machine, and even though it's not working the way it used to, it still works to a large extent and can affect consciousness being in there. So the stones, they always chose particular stones. Brian Forster told me this. They choose particular stones to do the building with, and they don't have mortar between the stones. And you have to have the perfect fit because the energy is like flowing around those particular stones because it's got particular crystalline structure and particular metals in that stone or whatever it is that conducts the energy in a certain way. And if you've got the stones flushed together and made in a certain shape, it's going to conduct the energy in a certain way and work its magic. Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, talking about ancient Egypt, every city in the world has an ancient Egyptian obelisk in it, doesn't it? Like as a conduit. Did
you see that photo? I think there was footage of it recently, a couple of days ago. The lightning struck the big obelisk outside the White House.
No, I didn't see that, no.
Oh, it's amazing.
Right. It's the new knowledge that we didn't. We've lost a lot of knowledge. We've lost our way as a species. this is a bit of a sad slip. Do you think the alien intervention we have been genetically engineered for the ends, for the purposes of some other race to use us as a slave race? Is that the Zachariah Sitchin thing about the Anunnaki?
I don't know that we have. I've heard that there are faults in his work, but I'm open to it. I'm completely open to it. Yeah. I've heard others, like there was a guy called Lloyd Pye who mysteriously died suddenly.
What do you think he was?
I think it's possible. Again, as I say, the more I know, the more I realise I don't know. It's possible. But he had a sudden illness and a sudden death. But he was having some skulls analysed. And he said he received correspondence from geneticists who say that looking at the human genome, there is evidence that it has been genetically engineered, that there is genetic manipulation as we would know it. So whether that's done by humans, whether that's done by aliens, I don't know. And whether that's actually right or some kind of hoax, I don't know. But I think it's absolutely possible. We don't seem to be... Humans don't seem suited to this planet and this environment in the way that all the other creatures do. You know, we need clothes, we need heating, we need all these things.
And like we're quite a weak species apart from our intelligence. Yeah. Like a dog or something. The pups leave straight away, or in the wild, the pups, whatever they are, they leave straight away. Some people never leave. I never left home. My mum passed away and I'm still in the house, kind of thing. You know, we are kind of a weak species in a lot of way. But if we have been genetically engineered by an alien species, whatever, it would explain the trauma of the human race, because we're a very damaged species, all told.
Well,
can I just say that me and Colin have made an executive decision. We've decided the camera cutting out is no longer charming, and we're taking this camera back to Curry's. So fuck you, and don't buy anything from Curry's. We was on about cataclysms, really. And,
humans have survived cataclysm after cataclysm after cataclysm. So our environment changes sort of incrementally. That's normal. Just the processes of erosion and geology and slow climate change. But it can also change, and has changed many times dramatically. So one time was the time that destroyed the dinosaurs, when we probably weren't around. And then the other time we know about 12,000 years ago. We've probably gone since then the longest period without some kind of major cataclysm, like that we know of, like 12,000 years or so without some kind of huge major cataclysm. And generally, people have survived these things. And so if you then add into the mix that we might have been a slave species at some point, and all races and all human races have been enslaved at some time. So then the wars, the cataclysms from meteorites and climate change and ice ages and volcanoes and the famines, the trauma that we carry collectively in our epigenetic DNA memory and our collective psychic memory is huge, is absolutely massive. So again, when people do... I remember when I first encountered ayahuasca and heard about ayahuasca, people like Graham Hancock and others and Joe Rogan would say, it's like having 20 years of psychotherapy in one night and things like that. What I didn't realise back then was how it can start to look at the you're almost doing the collective work as well for everybody, because we're all connected, but also doing the collective work for all your ancestors, and it's going back and can work on your epigenetic inheritance of your ancestors, of your past lives, of all sorts of things. And it's, again, the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know, and the more you experience, the more you realise you don't know, and you'll never know. And it's quite humbling in a way, because anyone who thinks they know it all, you realise, we don't know anything.
They're usually knobheads, people like that anyway. But it's quite mind-blowing to think about collective consciousnesses, and there's this school of thought about manifestation, and as a collective species we kind of might have manifested our current reality.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And like when people are going about mandatory vaccines and whatever, RDFI chips and things, and people go on about them all the time. They don't realise that they're actually manifesting. They could potentially be manifesting something by thought, the power
absolutely.
of thought.
We do it individually and we do it collectively, and I'm very open to that idea. So we must be mindful of our thoughts and mindful of our intentions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you don't really realise the power of thought and words, and that has been lost in the sense of, why do we spell a word? You cast a spell, or you write a word, which is a magical write. It's...
So we must be mindful of what we say, what we think, always stuff, what we write.
It's... I'm going to give a really kind of honest confessional thing here, what I'm not proud of. About 3 weeks before my mum passed away, I said to someone I'd fell out with her, I wish she was dead. And 3 weeks later, she kind of died, and I'll take that to my grave. But that, I do believe the intention and power of words, we just don't understand what we're saying to people when people are spitting hate constantly, daily over social media. It's people should, you're right what you said, people should really be mindful and be careful what you wish for, because it might come true.
But then at the same time, the compassion we've got to show others, we've got to show ourselves. So if you were to walk around for the rest of your life feeling guilty about that, that's not going to help. If you can show that compassion to yourself and forgive yourself, then it'll be easier to show that compassion for others as well.
When a person is hurt and angry, they usually project that on the world, don't they? And that's why the world's there's not enough love in the world, I don't think, Alan, is there? And that's where everything emanates from. We have a question here from good old Rubber Dub. What's your views on the Nazca lines in Peru?
Okay, unfortunately, I didn't go there. So when I went to Peru and Bolivia, it was a 14-day tour with an option of extending it for a few days. In which case we would have gone to Paracas and the Nazca lines, but I needed to come back for work, so I couldn't stay for the Nazca extension. I just think they're clearly designed to be seen from above. I don't think they're, Eric von Däniken originally said they were like a runway. I don't think they were a runway, but I do think they were designed to be seen from above. I do think they've lasted a ridiculous amount of time, which is incredible. I'm not sure exactly what they were, but what I would do is I would suggest to Rubber Dub Dub that he looks up Brian Forster's channel. So Brian Forster is Brian, Brien, and Forster, Foerster. Go to YouTube, type in Brian Forster, Nazca lines, and I know he'll have some good information about that, because I think Brian Forster's the man with the knowledge on this kind of thing. He's just this amazing guy who was, I think he was born in Canada or somewhere like that, or northern USA or Canada. I can't remember which. I think it was Canada. And he moved down to Peru, and he lives in Peru, and he just kind of tries to get his knowledge from the source, from the indigenous legend, and from examining the evidence, and really then he disseminates that knowledge on shows like Ancient Aliens or on his channel, or he's got these tours that you can go on, and he's the guy. I'd say look up Brian Forster and he will teach you more about the Nazca lines. But I would love to go, but as it stands, I'm open-minded. I have no idea what exactly they were or exactly who created them, but Brian might have a better idea than me.
So your experience in Peru, some of the things you saw, did you see any stargates, perceived stargates, where you could travel interdimensionally?
We did go to some places that were supposedly portals. I didn't see any interdimensional stuff going on back then. It was quite a hectic tour. There was a lot to see. I can't remember the name of this place, but there was one place in particular that's like a big red rock wall that was supposedly a portal.
You could run at it and then end up in Platt Bridge or something.
Kind of, yeah, or in any other place you desire. And then we also went to a place called Silastani, which is where David Icke had this awakening. So if you've ever heard David Icke describe this occurrence in Peru, where he stands there and he's like, his head blows open and all this information and energy's coming through him, and then afterwards it starts raining. And that was at Silastani, which again is some kind of energetic portal type place.
Am I right? You had ayahuasca over there in Peru.
No.
Did you not experience ayahuasca there?
At that stage in my life, I was interested, but I felt fine in myself, and I thought, well, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. I've also always been the most anti-drugs kind of person you could ever meet. I was like, wouldn't even have sugar or caffeine or alcohol or any of those kind of things. And obviously I'd had really bad experiences at the hands of pharmaceutical medicine. So I'd never been into recreational drugs either. And I still don't see those things as drugs, but perhaps then maybe I did see them slightly as drugs. But I was just interested in what Graham Hancock was saying, not just about ancient civilizations, but also about the ayahuasca. So on that tour, he gave talks about ayahuasca. A number of people on the tour had done ayahuasca or were about to do ayahuasca. It was fascinating to me. I'd heard of Joe Rogan talking about it. I'd heard of his documentary, the Spirit Molecule. It was all fascinating, but I thought, no, I'm fine. I don't need to touch this stuff. And the only reason I did was because a friend of mine had some issues and needed a bit of help, and we thought that ayahuasca might be able to help. So that was the reason that I was led to it in the end. Yeah.
I think Peru's the place you need to take it. I mean, I took it in Accrington.
Yeah.
Which is kind of not the same, is it really? I think you need to be deep in the jungle and feeling the jungle vibes, not in Accrington.
Well, it's a different experience for sure from everyone that's told me about it. I've not, like I say, I've not been. I would like to experience it one day, but you have to be very careful about who you do it with.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they idealize native people. So they think, oh, they're native people, they must be perfect. And we're all not so perfect. We're all flawed, they're all perfect. That's nonsense. People are people wherever you go. And there's good and bad people. There's people who are responsible, and there's people who will exploit you, and there's people who will be irresponsible. So if anyone does go to Peru or Brazil or anywhere else, you've got to know that you're going with someone who's going to look after you and do things right. And that just comes really from knowing people who know people who know people. And luckily, having been around this for a few years.
I mean, there's hustlers over there as well as here, isn't there, kind of thing? You might get some kind of perceived shaman who just gives you a cup of ayahuasca and you're rolling around that floor, and he's sat there like checking his Facebook and smoking a roll up. You know what I mean?
Totally.
5 more minutes, lad. You know what I mean? But you do get that, you know. But
there's those people everywhere. Yeah.
Do you think taking ayahuasca has enriched your life, or do you regret it?
Have absolutely no regrets. Whatsoever. It wasn't something that I'd planned. If I look back years ago, had I thought this was something I was going to do? No, it's just how life unfolded in a certain way, and it's changed my worldview. But I would never want to go back, even when it's made things a little bit difficult sometimes, because when your worldview changes, it can be challenging.
Yeah.
But even in the toughest times of that challenge, of that change, I have absolutely no regrets. I wouldn't want to go back to not knowing.
I don't think I'd take it again, really, because I had a pretty bad trip. But I would like to try mushrooms.
Okay.
Have you took magic mushrooms?
Not in any substantial quantity. I've microdosed with tiny amounts, which is what a lot of people do. For example, in Silicon Valley, it helps them to be more creative.
Really?
And think outside the box, create more neural connections. And I've also heard, so I went to attend a group in Manchester just before lockdown, actually. First time I'd been there. And it was like a psychedelic integration group run by a therapist.
Okay.
So it was a psychotherapist running the group, and all sorts of different people with different levels of experience, from zero to super experienced in all sorts of psychedelics. And it was absolutely fascinating. The number of people there, so it was maybe 20 people in a room, 15, 20 people, whatever. There's still maybe 5, 10 people who said they'd been depressed all their lives or anxious all their lives. And then they tried mushrooms, and for the first time that they can remember. No depression, no anxiety. And I've also heard of clinical trials from Imperial College London that they're doing on depression and anxiety and the effect of mushrooms, and it's quite miraculous. Again, just like ayahuasca, it's got to be done responsibly. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to do it in a safe environment. You've got to know what you're actually taking. I've never done any kind of deep dive on mushrooms. I'm very inexperienced, but I have microdosed, and what I found is there was a lot less pain and stiffness in my joints. I felt a lot more musically tuned in and perhaps a bit more creative in my thought. And yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I think when I have microdose, the thought that's come to me is it's absolutely ridiculous that this stuff is technically illegal, that these people who are being helped by these therapists who have to do it on the quiet, or who have to go to Holland to do it, or these people who've been depressed or anxious all their lives and they've started microdosing mushrooms with no psychedelic effects whatsoever because it's a microdose, and yet that is illegal. It's the one thing that has helped them with absolutely no harmful side effects, and it's completely natural and works with the earth. That is illegal is absolutely mind-boggling. It's ridiculous. And people say, oh, but it can be dangerous, it can be abused. So can every single pharmaceutical drug on the planet.
And as well, Alan, if mushrooms are illegal, it means they can sell more Prozac and more antidepressants, keep everybody in a stupor rather than kind of opening the third eye and seeing what's what, lifting the veil. I think you've covered that one quite well. While we're on the subject of mushrooms, Manzis H says he wants to eat more mushrooms. Can you recommend any mushroom recipes? I think he means normal mushrooms. Obviously not magic.
Normal ones.
Yeah, not like magic mushrooms on toast
normal ones
before you got work.
Are magic. So, as an example, I take a supplement that's 17 different mushrooms formulated by Paul Stamets, who, if you could get him on your podcast, that would be a coup.
Hopefully the camera will work then. I think our fucking camera's on mushrooms. We could give him mushrooms and then he might not fucking realise the camera's
those are legal mushrooms, and they can... So I can't really recommend any recipes, but I'd say get those whole food plant-based recipe books and look up recipes with shiitake and maitake and all these things, and they're fantastic.
Sorry, shiitake made me kind of laugh inside then.
Yeah.
Did you even have any shiitake? They're all fucking rubbish.
Yeah, they make you have a shiitake afterwards. They're very good to keep you regular. But seriously, they're great for you for fighting cancer. So even your bog standard mushrooms, those bog standard white mushrooms you get in the supermarket, they help fight cancer.
Really?
And the bigger ones are even more potent than the smaller ones in fighting cancer.
Do you know vegetables in the supermarket? I've heard this, I don't know if you know anything about it. Sorry, I'm away from the mic, Col. If you put vegetables from the supermarket in water with apple cider vinegar, does that get rid of the chemical? I've heard it gets... How many chemicals are on the vegetables? Have you any idea? I know it removes 4 chemicals, but
I don't know how many are on, but there's innumerable chemicals in the process of growing them and just in the air generally.
Inside. It's in the DNA of the plant.
Right. Well, a lot of it is inside, and you can't get it out, I don't think. And what's on the outside, you don't even need apple cider vinegar, just salt water. So again, from nutritionfacts.org, which has got so many good hints and tips, the best wash for your fruit and vegetables is water with a bit of salt in it, and that really helps to get the pollutants off the surface of the vegetables. You're not going to get them out of the vegetables and out of the cells. You're not going to get that, but from the surface you get rid of that.
I forgot before, Rubber Dub asked 2 questions. We'll let him have 2 questions while he sends money in. Does veganism decrease bone density and bone marrow to produce red blood cells?
I have never heard of it reducing bone density, and I've never heard of it affecting red blood cell count in any unhealthy way either. Bear in mind there are plenty of vegan athletes and vegan mixed martial artists, and they wouldn't want to have brittle bones, and vegan weightlifters, vegan strength competitors. one of the world's strongest men is vegan, who hold a world record holding power lifter. The only American to make it to the 2016 Olympics in weightlifting was vegan as well, and there's vegan boxers like David Hay. They wouldn't want to do it if they had brittle bones, so no.
And gorillas are vegan, aren't
Gorillas
they?
are vegan.
You wouldn't fuck about with a gorilla,
Elephants are
would
vegan.
you?
The biggest, strongest animals on the planet.
So perhaps we're just being lied to that we need meat. Are we not meant to eat meat?
I think we have eaten meat for survival when there have been no other options, and it's kept us alive long enough to procreate and survive for generations and generations. Perhaps, and like I said earlier, I'm open to the possibility that it could be beneficial in small quantities for some reason, but do we need it? No. But without eating meat, like I've talked about catastrophes earlier, we perhaps would not have survived, or certainly certain populations would never have survived to this day had they not eaten animals, because there were no vegetables and fruits around to eat. So they had to survive, and we've adapted and we've been able to survive. But when you actually examine the whole thing, the whole digestive tract from here to here, there are quite a number of experts who think, no, we're basically herbivores, we're not really carnivores.
I think we was peaceful, happy, nut-eating creatures till the Anunnaki came and made us evil and brought bacon sandwiches.
It's possible. From
Nibiru.
Think. They brought bacon sandwiches from Nibiru.
Well, you never know. You never know. Do I pause now, Colin? Has the camera work cut out?
Well, have you finished?
No, I've got a little bit one. Gary Boardman. Hello, Gary. Thanks for buying a T-shirt. Says, is celery and hummus all right for diabetics to eat? I know you're not a doctor and you can't fucking give advice.
This isn't medical advice, but celery, absolutely, certainly. Hummus, I would say yes, but the one thing in hummus is the hummus that you buy in all shops, even the healthiest shops, is made with oils. So whether it's sunflower oil or whatever. Oils aren't the best for diabetics, because when you actually, certainly if it's type 2, when you find out what causes diabetes type 2, as a symptom, it shows up as a problem of blood sugar regulation, as carbohydrate regulation. But the cause is due to fats getting into the muscle cells, intramyocellular lipid. So if you look up the work of Neil Barnard, as a diabetic, I would highly recommend he looks up Neil Barnard. Okay. So certainly if it's type 2, it's reversible. If it's type 1, it's very manageable. Hummus shouldn't be a problem, but the more you can reduce your oils, the better, because those fats can contribute to not just heart disease, but also clogging the insulin receptors on the muscle cells. That's the intramyocellular lipid, which basically means fat in the muscle cells. So the blood sugar is supposed to get from the blood into the muscle cell where it's stored and used, where it provides the energy. But if that is blocked by the fats, that's when you get the problem of the blood sugar backing up in the blood and accumulating there. But yeah, generally safe, but do look up Neil Barnard. He's absolutely brilliant, and if you've got type 2, he can perhaps guide you to a way to reverse it. If you've got type 1, he can perhaps point you in the right direction to even better management of it.
Plus, I think you live in schools, Gary, so why are you eating hummus? You know, you don't tell people on schools priests, them kids will knock fuck out of you. Just go to Mamma Mia's rent corner and ask for a vegan kebab.
Well, it's too late now, it's all over the internet.
Question from Orlan Pierce. He says, have you ever been to the Bosnian pyramids?
No. I've probably been through Bosnia many, many times as a kid when it was Yugoslavia and I didn't know it was Bosnia, Croatia, Serbia, etc. But I've never been to the Bosnian pyramid. I would love to go. And if Jimmy's podcast gets big enough and makes enough money and everyone donates enough, then we will go to the Bosnian pyramid and do a show from the Bosnian pyramid with that Dr. Osmar Ganovic or whatever his name is.
We'll bring him as well. And when Bitcoin moons, we'll buy some yachts and fill our yachts with organic women, organic vegan women as well, kind of thing, just to keep us company, and lots of organic malt loaf, and we'll have a gay old time in the traditional sense of gay. I don't mean like doing anything completely Roman on that one, but cut. Camera's not cut out, so cut. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What was the question?
Something about Caligula and his gay orgies.
That's it, and marrying horses. He married a horse, Caligula, didn't
Did he?
he? You know what he used to do as well, which I kind of...
What? So he's worse than Muhammad.
You know what Caligula used to do? He used to torture people while he ate as entertainment. And this, I might appear a psychopath, but I think I wouldn't mind watching something.
You know
when
what,
I'm eating my fucking ready bread.
What is the difference? Here's a serious question. What is the difference between that and half the shit that people watch while they're eating?
X Factor, people crying and breaking down.
They're like having the dinner, watching the news. Having the dinner, watching a movie with people being blown up. What is the difference between what he was doing and what people are doing now? There is no difference. Human nature hasn't changed.
We're at the end of civilization, I think. The Romans...
Comes in cycles.
The Romans used to, I mentioned it earlier, used to sprinkle lead on the food and they all went mad. Now, I'm sure we're doing something similar with social media and all the poisoning our food, really, and we're all mental, but end of the day, fuck it, Alan. In the words of Billix, it's just a rad. At the moment, Alan, London Real seems to have exploded and Brian Rose is everywhere with his shirt off, walking down the street, telling people how good he is and how he's about to change the face of mankind and consciousness if they contribute to his platform. A lot of people are kind of allegedly saying that he's not got the best intentions. You've had personal experience of Brian Rose and you've been on one of his courses. Would you like to talk a bit about that?
I can do briefly, yeah. So I did an interview about it, if anyone's interested. It's up on my Truth, Health, Freedom podcast on YouTube, and it's also on Through an Opaque Lens on YouTube, which is Niall Murphy's channel. So a friend of mine sent me a video of Niall Murphy saying he doesn't trust Brian Rose, and I watched it and I made a comment and said if he wants to interview me, he could, or have a chat about it, because basically I've kept quiet about it in public for 2 years since I did the course. It was a scam. It was advertised a certain way. The certain things were promised in the marketing material that were not delivered in the course, and therefore basically it was a big scam, and half the people on the course were absolutely disgusted and livid. I've not talked about it publicly, but I felt I had to come public recently because Brian Rose was out there all over the place because of his interviews with David Icke that got slightly censored by YouTube, and he was basically trying to get more money out of people for his digital freedom platform. And I felt I've got to say something about my experience just to warn people of the nature of this man and his schemes and his scams. So that's why I went public with that. So what he's been doing lately is this: he's been trying to put himself out there as the champion of free speech, and it's just been another big, massive money-making scam, and some people fell for it, and I thought I've got to do my bit and put my voice out there and just say, look, this is my experience, so don't part with your money until you've heard all sides of the story, mine, other people's, and Brian's himself. I think there's two sides to him. I think there is a side to him that wants to do good and that is interested in what people have got to say in his interviews, and he is interested in learning. But I think there's another side to him that unfortunately takes advantage of people, and that's the side that needs to be reined in, shall we say. And I think it's a bit sad as well, because if you look at the early days of London Real, he seemed to have a light in his eyes, seemed to be enjoying himself, seemed to be laughing and smiling, and seemed genuinely fascinated by what people had to say and on a learning journey. You know, he used to wear cargo pants and a t-shirt and have a goatee beard and spiky hair. And then he met Dan Pena and he kind of turned the other way and started selling scam courses and trying to get money out of everybody. And Yeah, it's quite sad because what it's come to now is he's done all this good work, and a lot of it is good work. There's some stuff that's not so good and some stuff that not to my taste, but there's a hell of a lot of good work, an enormous amount of good work in his catalogue, back catalogue, as you'd call it. But now, under every video, whether it's one of his own or a video about him, he's just a figure of hatred and ridicule in equal measure. I think that's really sad, to be honest, but he's kind of brought it on himself through his actions, unfortunately. And it's very sad. It's very sad, yeah.
Have you seen the video where he's on a punching bag? It's like filming your nan. I've never seen anything like it. I made a comment on it. I said, my toaster's done more rounds than you. You know, but... to play,
I haven't seen... I'll be honest, since the course, I've largely avoided watching any of his stuff because it left a bad taste in the mouth, to be honest.
Watch it. To play devil's advocate,
yeah.
Do you think that you was a little naive to go on a course where someone's promising to help you build a 1,000 six-figure podcast?
In some ways, yes, but in some ways, no. First of all, there was the money-back guarantee that he didn't honour for anybody. Secondly, he has one of the most successful podcasts on YouTube, okay, both from a view point of view and a money-making point of view. Therefore, if someone like that puts out a course in which he promises to teach you how to monetize and how to make a successful business out of your podcast, that's as good as anyone to be learning from, really. Also, he... on the course, there was basically no more about how to create a business from your podcast than was in the marketing material.
Yeah.
So it wasn't fleshed out at all. Now, you fully expect that it would be fleshed out because it's not like this guy doesn't have the knowledge of how to do it. He absolutely does because he's been there and he's done it. So in that respect, it wasn't naive. Plus, you've also got the money-back guarantee, supposedly. Yes, there was an element of naivety, but even so, the law is there to protect those people. And I do not blame the naive people who got scammed. I blame the thief who takes advantage of their naivety and breaks laws in order to do so, because laws exist, such as the Misrepresentation of Goods and Services Act of 1967 and the Consumer something 2008. Those two laws are the two that I'm pretty confident he flouted. Those laws exist to protect the customers, to protect the naive, to protect the vulnerable from those who were to take advantage. So if, for example, you one night forgot to lock your door and your house got robbed, were you a bit naive and silly to not lock your door? Yes. Is the criminal still culpable? Absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
Completely. He's still the thief. He's the one who's committed the crime. Because I can guarantee if I saw somebody's door open, I wouldn't go in and rob them.
You're not from Ince.
So, you know, and he's not someone who's poor. He's not robbing people in order to survive.
Yeah, I get
He's robbing people out of sheer greed. This is not someone on the breadline. And he also has that business knowledge, and he wasn't prepared to share it. In fact, halfway through the course, he says, now you've got a podcast. If you want to turn it into a successful business, you're going to want to sign up to my Business Accelerator course, which completely defeats the point because he's already told us he's going to teach us the business on that course. So were we naive? To some extent, yes. But with all the laws we have in this country, which should protect us against scams, and his business is registered in this country, so he is subject to those laws. And with the fact that he has that knowledge and he has that track record of producing a successful podcast over a number of years, and he could, if he'd wanted to, shared that knowledge with us of how to make a world-class podcast and how to turn it into a successful business. But he didn't. So it's a bit of swings and roundabouts, but the scammer, the thief, is still the one to blame. Would I sign up to something like that today? Absolutely not. But, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and that was part of the learning curve, yeah.
Never sign up to anybody on the internet approaching you on Instagram saying, I can send me a Bitcoin, I'll make you more, I can make you a millionaire in 6 weeks, I can make you the heavyweight champion of the world in a course kind of thing. Oh, just send money to people on the internet. If you want to donate to this channel, you can buy us a coffee by clicking the link below. We won't change consciousness or the future of mankind, but we can buy a camera that works, perhaps, something like that. But yeah, it was one of them things, Alan. You know.
Yeah.
You're going to
again, no regrets. Absolutely no regrets. I did what I did. I signed up, but he could have delivered. That's the crazy thing. This is someone with the ability, the experience, and the knowledge to have delivered had he wanted to.
Do you think he might not like the idea of competition? And he obviously, people who keep knowledge back to themselves, it's like the elites in it because they don't want anybody coming.
I think he's okay with competition, but what he wants is he wants his money, and he wants his money, and he wants people who are going to keep buying his course after course after course after course, product after product. That's his mindset. I don't think he minds the competition so much, but he wants to maximise his takings, and he is prepared to do some very unethical things in order to do so. Unethical and illegal.
Stop it, Brian, and put your shirt back on. You're making a show of yourself. Don't let it deter you from doing your podcast. It left a bad taste in your mouth podcast-wise for a while after, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And also, and I'm still open to this, I was thinking of going to the small claims court about this thing, and I still can do that for another 3 years. And that's why I hadn't gone public before. But I was also, until I'd gone public, it put the brakes on my podcast. Now that I've gone public, I feel it's taken the brakes off me somehow. But I had never wanted to go public until any court action was finished. And the only reason I went public was because he was so public recently and so all over the place and asking for money. And I thought, I cannot stay silent while he is out there so prominently and so ubiquitously asking for money. I cannot stay silent. And that's why I came out even before any potential court action. But now that I have, I feel it's taken that weight off me. It's like that panema. That cloud that was over me has been lifted just by coming out publicly and talking about it. Most people were scared to come out publicly because they didn't pay in full. Most people paid in instalments who were unhappy. And then they just stopped their instalments after the course. And if they came out publicly, they're scared that he would come after them for their money. Whereas I paid in full because it was cheaper to pay in full. And that's why perhaps it's easier for me to come out publicly than for all these others on my course who will not do so and are too scared.
Don't be frightened of him. I've seen him on a punch bag. He couldn't punch his way to a wet paper bag, really.
Yeah.
I have another question from Darren Lewis. I use food to control my autoimmune disease. Turmeric, pectin from citrus and pineapple for inflammation. Are there any other foods you would recommend?
Yeah, for the inflammation, definitely ginger. He's probably already having black pepper with his turmeric if he knows that stuff. But generally, most of the plant foods are anti-inflammatory. And yeah, in terms of autoimmunity, sometimes it's identifying which foods are triggers. Fasting is very good for autoimmunity. So if you ever give yourself a rest, whether it's just, you can do intermittent fasting as in a 16-8 kind of thing where you only eat within an 8-hour window. Even if you only do that once a day or once a week, you might want to do or once a month, do a 1 meal a day or something like that. So anytime you can give your body a break, that can really help. But yeah, I think in terms of autoimmunity, all the plant foods can be really, really powerful. But I think fasting as well, if you can incorporate any bit of intermittent fasting, even if only occasionally, I think that can be very, very helpful for autoimmunity.
Would you say that fasting has cured? Do you currently have any ailments now? Have you completely cleared yourself of ailments?
No, I'm certainly not perfect because I've never done a fast really that's long enough. So when, we talked earlier about having done a 10-day fast, for example, I've never reached the stage in a fast that I have read about and heard about where you start to feel totally energized. So you get through all the awful, awkward, painful feeling and discomfort, and suddenly you're really energized and you're really sprightly. And I've never reached that stage, and that basically means everything's healed and you're ready to start refeeding. I've never had that length of time. One day I'd like to do that, but I wouldn't do that unless it was medically supervised. But everyone has ailments. We live in a toxic world. We have toxic thoughts as well. And so no one can be perfect, but I feel it's definitely benefited my health hugely, yeah.
Would you ever, do you know, like in the fasting time frame, what good does a 2-day fast do for you?
Well, first of all, it gives the digestion a rest, which is important. It can help burn off some fat cells. It can help burn off a bit of toxicity, but it will boost things like the human growth hormone. It'll boost your cancer-fighting cells, things like that. So yeah, it can have some very beneficial effects.
I was waiting for a cut then.
Yeah.
Keep that in. Yeah, just laughing when toxic thoughts. I know I have toxic thoughts.
What toxic thoughts were you thinking? Do you want to share? Do you want to have another confession?
I could never share on YouTube my toxic thoughts. It'd have to be on BitChute or Library because it would just get fucking deplatformed like that.
I think the Jimmy O confessional booth should be your next project.
I'm constantly telling him things I want to say, and he's like, "No, take that offline now. Don't say that. No, we can't use that." And it's like, you have to do this thing. You have to play. Fuck, I've not been too close to the mic as well. But yeah, that was kind of it. Thank you very much for coming in and dropping some knowledge on nutrition, spacemen, and all of fasting. No, seriously, a lot of people, it'll interested a lot of people, and it could be a good starting point for people to research better nutrition, vegan diet, and stuff like that. So thank you very much, Alan. If you want to check out Alan's podcast, what is your podcast called?
It's the Truth, Health, Freedom podcast. I kind of left it alone for a while, but I recently did an interview about Brian Rose of London Real because I felt that it needed to be talked about because he was out there scamming people, and so I thought I needed to share my experience of that, and I want to rejuvenate it and start putting a bit of content out there and interviewing some interesting people. As the name suggests, Truth, Health, Freedom podcast. It kind of does what it says on the tin.
We'll put a link below. There's loads of links. If you want to donate,
it's on YouTube, iTunes, everywhere. Yeah.
If you want to donate to this channel to buy camera equipment, GoPros, prostitutes, and malt loaf, buy us a coffee beneath here. There's loads of links to check out various things. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, why not? Do it. Hit the various notification bells that are around. Anything else, Colin, you can think of suggesting?
Where's your subscribe button going?
Subscribe button will be down there somewhere up there. It'll be anyway. And share the fuck out of this, please, because we're all narcissists and we need the love and attention that the vacuous validity of social media brings temporarily. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on, Jimmy.
No, thank you, Alan.